And now all of a sudden I couldn't go.
That sucks.
And
Yeah.
it sucked. Yeah, it did. But what was interesting is I caught myself in a growth moment. I realized that, a year ago I'd have flown off the handle and just exploded with rage, just friggin' rage. Nothing.
All right, everyone. So cool you're here. My name is Maurice, and I'm with my dear friend John for another episode of the Mentoring Man podcast. And we're so happy you are here. And today we're going to talk about how to react when shit happens. Right?
Yeah.
We all experience that. We all have expectations on things, and we hope things go in a certain way, and you have this maybe even organize something that it goes in a certain way, and then all of a sudden it just falls down flat on its face, and you got to deal with it. How do you deal with that? Well, funny story. John just experienced exactly that, didn't you, John? Tell us a little bit about what was going on and what happened.
Yeah. Um, I was supposed to go to Tony Robbins' event this week called Unleash the Power Within. It was the first live event in 2 years. And I
Yeah.
happened to be at the last live event 2 years ago.
Oh wow.
So it was going to kind of bookend a couple of things for me, in my life. But as it turns out, the vacation time
And
that I had put,
and the event is it's Tony Robbins live event. It's like 3-4 days, right? I've went to
yeah,
that same kind of event in London a couple of years ago.
yeah.
And it's a huge deal, right? It's like 14,000 people, or how much are there?
We were supposed to have 10 or 11,000 people at this convention center.
Right.
And I was supposed to be part of the crew working the event.
Right. Wow,
And
that's
I had
even more close to Tony itself.
Yeah, I had been on the crew for some of Tony's virtual events, but this was going to be the first event that I crewed live in person. I was
Wow.
excited, stoked, psyched, ready to go. I mean, I went out and I bought certain things that I knew I was going to need. Because you're supposed to be dressed in all black and, just black pants, black sneakers, so I had black shirts. They were going to give us the crew shirts, the whole bit. So psyched, so totally stoked. Being able to do the firewalk again. I haven't done that in 2 years. I wanted to do that so bad. And the vacation time that I had put in for, my boss didn't give me, and I found out about it on Friday. And I'm
Wait,
amazed that I
so
didn't hit the roof.
your vacation didn't come through, and
Didn't
now
come
you
through,
don't
and now
have
I can't go.
vacation days, and you can't go.
I have plenty of time, vacation time, but he didn't authorize it. So I can't go. I have to be at work for this thing. I had to cancel the hotel room, get the money back, all of that fun stuff. Okay. But I didn't hit the roof. I didn't get pissed off. I didn't get angry. Yeah, I'll admit I had a mini funeral for Friday into Saturday. I did.
Sure.
But you know what? I got past it. I didn't get twisted and bent out of shape.
Okay, but let's rewind back. I mean, this is like a big deal for you, right? Going on an event like that, and you were excited and pumped to go there, and you were ready. What you said, you bought the stuff to be ready for it and everything.
Yep.
What happened in your mind when you got that message from your boss? Or what happened there?
I honestly thought it was a mistake. That it was just an oversight. Right. I had put in for the vacation time, and you never said no. So I assumed that meant yes, because you usually tell us, John, I can't give you that week off, because so-and-so already has that week off. We never had that conversation. So if I don't hear a no, if I don't hear a no, it's a go. I'm going. Great. No problem. Right. I found out Friday that I wasn't going. I was going to leave on Monday, tomorrow. Drive up there, be there for Tuesday and Wednesday for the setup and all of that stuff. And then Thursday, we rock and roll. Nope, not going at all. But I didn't get twisted and bent out of shape. And, Tony talks about how it's easy to stay in that state of mind when everything's going right. Can you stay in state when things go sideways, when you get knocked off the rails. It's a hard thing to do. But I got to tell you, I'm not angry. I'm disappointed. Of course, I'm human. But I'm not
Sure.
angry. I'm not bent out of shape and getting all kinds of pissed off and stuff like that. I'm not. I'm neutral. I'm not. I'm just there. I'm just neutral. It happened. Nothing I can do about it. There'll be another live one. I'll go to that. Um, and I'm actually kind of impressed with myself. I have to be honest with you. I'm putting a check mark in the win column for me.
Sure.
Because
I mean,
I didn't get bent out of shape.
normally you would like, I mean, this is what you really were looking for. And now it all of a sudden, because of such a stupid error that can, I mean, that's a disappointment. That's like, but what happened there? How do you come into that state? What did you do there? How come you are this calm or neutral? Was it a conscious call you're making, or did you went through
was not a
thought
conscious
process?
call. It's just the way that it was a subconscious reaction, not to have a reaction, not to fly off the handles. And I think it has to do with growing. I think it has to do with all the stuff that I've been talking about, that you and I have been talking about, that we've been teaching, that we've been learning. It's finally starting to get in there and to become part of who I am now. Who I was a year ago, I am light years away from who I was last year,
Sure.
2 years ago, 10 years ago. You learn, you grow, and you learn how to react differently as you mature. In some ways, I was very immature not that many years ago. Still,
Is it then that you think?
I've grown.
Is it that you think like you accept reality as it is, and you know that you can act in a certain way to that reality, and you have a choice there, right?
Yes, I could choose to fly off the handle and get all bent out of shape when something doesn't go my way, but how is that helping me get from where I am to where I want to be? And
Exactly.
it doesn't help you. But now I understand that internally. I understand that on a subconscious level. And I think that's why I didn't go ballistic when I found that I couldn't go to this thing. And some of the listeners out there are like, nah, it's just a weekend. Yeah, it's no big deal. There'll be another one. Well, yes, you're right, but it was a big deal to me. I valued this, especially since it was the first one in 2 years, and it's going to be over the top. He's going to pull out all the stops on this one, and I was going to be a part of it, and now I can't. Okay, shit happens. How are you going to deal with it? The measure of a man is how are you going to deal with when something goes sideways? What face are you going to put on? When I was listening to somebody, I don't know, you may have heard of her. Her name's Brene Brown.
Oh yeah, for sure. She has 2 amazing TED Talks.
Yeah, absolutely. They're spectacular. I love them. And she was talking about shame, guilt, humiliation, and embarrassment, and how those sound like the same thing, but they're not. They're 4 different things. Shame is a focus on yourself. I am a mistake. I am not good. I am bad. Let's focus on self. Guilt is a focus on your behavior. I did something bad. I did something wrong. I made a mistake. That's behavior. How did I behave when I found out I couldn't go? I didn't get twisted and bent out of shape. I behaved differently than I would have 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was a realization. There's no humiliation there because nobody humiliated me. Humiliation is defined basically, I did not deserve what just happened. Now, that's true. I didn't deserve to have my vacation canceled or not approved, but it wasn't personal. It was an oversight, whatever it was not personal. And I know that for a fact because I worked with this guy for a long time. This wasn't personal. And then there's the embarrassment. There's fleeting. You're able to laugh about it afterwards. And we know we're not the only ones to have done whatever it is that you're embarrassed about. I'm embarrassed because I told all my friends I'm going to this thing and we were all excited. And now I got to tell everybody, nope, I'm not going. That's embarrassing
Yeah,
to have to do that. But you know what?
sure.
It
But in
happens
the
to
other hand,
everybody. So again,
yeah,
it's not a personal thing.
no, no, exactly. And it's also not something that you did or why, what's ever your fault or your responsibility. Well, maybe you could have handled it differently, right? To get another different result. But it has nothing to do with guilt. It has nothing to do with shame. It has nothing to do with any of these, right? It just happened. And the question now is how you're handling it from now on, right? What are you doing right now?
Exactly. So we mentioned in the past the six human needs, right?
Yeah.
Certainty, uncertainty, um, um, love and connection. We talked about what was the other one? Significance,
Yeah.
growth, and contribution. Well, let's see. Certainty. I was certain I was going, and then uncertainty came in and just knocked me off the rails. You can't really be certain of what's going to happen. You have a plan, but it's not always going to be the way you want it to be. So
Yeah.
uncertainty kicked in. Okay, I'm not going to this thing. That's the reality of it. Significance. It was important to me. It made me feel important. I was going to be part of the crew, man. I was hot shit for a little while. It felt great.
Yeah.
But what gives me more significance, honestly, is the way I reacted to it. I'm
Yeah.
stronger now, and I'm proud of
Exactly.
myself now. Love
I
and
think
connection.
that's a big deal indeed, and
Yeah.
really to focus on what is next on the list there, right? What are you doing from out of that place of that you want? The uncertainty part is a big deal. I think many people try to live from this feeling of certainty, right? One of the six human needs, but there is no certainty in anything, right? There is no certain. There's just one certainty, that is, you will die in the end, right? That's the only certainty you will have. But until that moment, you try to build a life with certainties, and we have to deal with things happening not as we planned them, right? And it could be anything. I've experienced that in my life many times, right? Where you think I had a certain job. I was what was the title? Business development manager at a company, and we were working all hard, and it was going, and there were troubles, but it seemed like it was manageable, and we could fix it, and everything would be all right. And I had a great, salary, company car, everything arranged, right? I had it all figured out. Felt very secure, very certain. And all of a sudden, this guy calls me, my boss, the director, CEO, and says, "We're pulling the plug. We're not going to make it. So at the end of this month, you'll be out of a job." What?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the feeling of certainty is pretty much always a false feeling of certainty. There is no certainty. We all have things happening different than we planned. And it is about the way you react on those kind of things. Exactly what you just told us, right? How you can either react positively, you can react negatively, or you can react neutral. And I do believe that reacting neutral should be the first way to react to a certain thing. Because when you act neutral, nothing happens. Right? When you're negative, of course, shit happens, because you're gonna pull everything down and create anything around you that will make it even worse. But if you're focused on the positive, that might also not be the right cause, right? Because first of all, it's hard, I think, to create a positive there. But the neutral really makes you step back a couple of inches and take a look at the situation and think, okay, this just happens. Now what? What's my next move?
Yeah, it's interesting because being neutral when it happens in the moment, staying neutral, what it did was it bought me some time to decide what way to go with this, negative or positive. I can give you a list of negatives, but I can give you a list of positives about this too. One,
Sure.
I'm not burning another week of vacation. So that'll carry over into next year. Okay. Maybe next year I'll go to 220 events. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something else that occurred to me is when you don't get the thing that you want, if you pray, God, please let me have this, and you don't get it, sometimes there's something better coming. You didn't get this job promotion, but that opportunity opened up, and you don't know it at the moment, but it leaves room for something better to happen. Well, what's better than a Tony Robbins event? I don't know. I haven't seen it yet. Let's find out. Give it some time.
Yeah.
Something's coming.
Exactly that.
And I choose to realize that, you know what? Okay, I'm not going there. I've accepted it. Life goes on. Let's move on. So, and from a significant standpoint, I feel pretty damn good that I'm not, what the fuck do you mean I'm not going on this trip? No, I could have gone that route, but I didn't. And it never occurred to me to go there.
Right.
I just
not anymore.
Calm. Not anymore. I just stayed calm. And that was a revelation. I'm like, wait a minute, I didn't fly off the handle. Something in me changed.
Yeah.
Love and connection. Well, let's see. The people that I told I was going, they don't love me any less. They're still my friends, even though I'm not going. The connection's still there, so I didn't lose anything there.
Yeah.
Right. So then there's the two spiritual needs: growth and contribution. Well, let's see. Growth. I recognized I did grow just from my reaction. And that's huge, guys. If you listen to this and you keep thinking he keeps saying the same damn thing, yeah, I am saying the same damn thing. It is huge when you recognize that something about you changed and you have no idea when it changed.
And this revelation may be even bigger than what you've learned when you were on the show itself, right? When you were going. And maybe that's the lesson, right? Maybe that is what you are bound to learn from this now, that you have grown and you've gone through this and you can react like this. This is your state. You can control your state from a subconscious feeling. And I think that's the most important part, right?
And that's the contribution part.
Yeah.
If I can learn how to do this, I can teach you how to do this.
Exactly.
I can show you what I went through, what the steps that I took. And it doesn't make a difference if it takes you 6 months or 6 years to learn it. When you get it and it happens and you didn't even realize that you figured it out, it happened on a subconscious level and you didn't even realize that you made this change.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you saw, wait a minute, something changed. And you've grown. That's a win in the win column, guys. It's huge.
Yeah. And exactly. And I think that comes from a process where you become from active working on things like that, right? Being conscious about things like that, where you have to reprogram your subconscious mind. And that's where our habitual behavior comes from, right? The first reaction you have when something happens, that's just an habitual way of thinking. It can be habitual built in throughout the years, or it can be something really like biologically, like fight, fright, and flee, right? But if you can reprogram that from your conscious mind, from what you've been doing, what you've been studying on Tony's work on state and how you can change and shift your state, you've done that in such a way that you've now created an habitual way, which will actually create a new habit that you can react in certain situations in a far more neutral and observing way, and then decide what you're going to do with it.
Mm-hmm. And part of growth is we've talked in the past about being afraid to do something and letting fear stop you and all of that stuff, right? But part of this has to do with vulnerability, because if you're vulnerable, you're setting yourself up for failure. You're setting yourself up to get hurt. Emotionally, spiritually, physically hurt. You're just setting yourself up. But there's another side of vulnerability. That is growth on a personal level, connection with somebody. When you're vulnerable with somebody, can you really be vulnerable with somebody and that person be vulnerable with you? And do you think if the two of you are that honest with each other, your relationship will get stronger? whether it's a friendship, a romantic relationship, interpersonal relationship at work, if you can actually be vulnerable. And think about this for a minute. We're, entrepreneurs, right? You and I. We're trying to, start a business and make some money doing it and all of that stuff. But if we weren't, creativity comes from vulnerability. We are trying to make something, to create something that hasn't been created yet. The Mentoring Men. This is the first time the Mentoring Men has ever existed, right? And we're trying to create, and anybody who's an entrepreneur, anybody who's trying to do something, even if you work for a company and you're in research and development, you have an idea, you're creating something from a place of vulnerability. It's never been done before. Tell me what's more vulnerable than doing something that's never been done before.
Sure, absolutely.
And you put it out there, and there's so many people out there that you work with or that that can look at you and say, "Are you out of your friggin' mind? What the hell are you thinking?" But you have
that's exactly
to stand up for yourself, and you think that this is a right decision to make, and you stand your ground. That kind of strength comes from being vulnerable, also.
Yeah, I think that from that part there, you create your ability to take risks and go for what you want, right? And that's what you did. That's what I did. That's what a lot of people do. And it becomes even harder when we are talking to family and friends that care about you and want to protect you. I say, dude, what the hell are you doing? Why are you doing this? Right? I had this happening when I quit my job and started doing this full time. I had a major fallout with my brother, right? He was all over the place, like, you're out of your fucking mind and you're crazy. And
I remember having that conversation with you. Yeah.
Yeah. And I can't blame him, right? He wants to protect me from making mistakes, of course. And just like I want to protect myself, but I also want to make a step forward and do what I love and take that risk and do this.
Yeah.
And, that needs vulnerability, of course. And I'm not saying I'm nailing it every day, but I'm doing what I can and trying to get things to work. And that's what I do. But it starts with being me and being real to you and to everyone that I work with and that I connect with on this level, to show that vulnerability. Absolutely. Yeah.
And part of this is empathy. Part of it is empathy. You see somebody who's struggling with something, and you can have an empathic failure when you say to them that somebody's feeling shamed or guilty or whatever it is about something. And you can say, it's no big deal. Don't worry about it. You'll pick yourself up. That's an empathic failure. What you need to have is a critical awareness and being able to see through and be able to ask somebody, tell me why this is so painful for you. And you're seeing the person on that level, and you can say, you know what, me too. I've been there. I get it. That person all of a sudden has somebody in their corner. Yeah. So if something goes sideways for somebody, are you just blowing them off? Think about this for a minute, guys. If you're listening, just think about this. Do you blow them off? Don't worry about it. It's no big deal. It happens to everybody. Or are you actually getting to the person and saying, what is it that's causing you so much pain? Oh, okay. That I understand, because that's happened to me too. And now there's a communication there, and that person isn't alone anymore. And you're being vulnerable with each other. Okay.
Yeah.
Just from a little bit of empathy, a little bit of caring. It is a huge step forward when you can take that 2 minutes to care. Empathy instead of blow it off. Don't worry about it. No big deal. Happens to everybody.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't happen to everybody the same way. It may happen to everybody, but I'm going to handle it differently than you are. Just because of our upbringings, our life experiences, and all of that crap. So, and when you feel like you don't have anybody in the world to talk to about something, when you really truly feel like you're alone, there's no worse place in the world to be than that. And we've all been there too. So,
yeah,
which would you
we
rather
want to
have?
connect. Yeah, we want to connect to other people, and other people need to connect to us in that manner, right? So I totally get
Yeah.
it when you say you need that empathy part. And what a lot of guys missing in their way of upbringing mostly is that you should protect your ego, you should protect who you are, and boys shouldn't cry, what we talked about before. But it starts with actually caring about someone else, being curious about someone else, and being there for someone else, right? If you start, and this is really an interesting technique that you can use by doing that, is just to listen without trying to solve it. And that's the way guys think, right? If I'm telling someone my problems, whatever, to a guy, he tries to solve the problem for me, which is awesome. Thank you. But most of the time when people share their problems, it's not because they want you to solve their problems, but just to listen.
Mm-hmm.
And I see this a lot with guys and women in their relationships, right? Because when women talk and share their day or share their things that they're troubling with, we guys think in solutions. Well, you should say this and this to your girlfriend, or you should say this and this to your boss, or you should do this and this. But that's not why they're sharing it. They're sharing it because they want to share it. The empathy part. So once you change your mindset, instead of like I'm listening to solve, change it to I'm listening to listen, without any thoughts or opinions or solutions. Just listen. Just let it come in.
Yeah. See, what a lot of guys have a difficult time understanding is when women are talking to you about something, that's how they process. That's how they find their own solution, by talking about it, getting it out, hearing it, regurgitating it over and over until they come up with their own solution. All they need you to be is a sounding board. And men have a hard time understanding this concept. We want to be the hero for them because we love them.
And that's what we've been taught.
Want to solve their problem. That's not what they don't want you to solve their problem. They just want you to shut up and listen. And it's a difficult thing to do. It really is a difficult thing to do. But guys, you want to be there for other people. Yes, absolutely. That's what we do. Okay. But before we can be there for somebody else, before we can really, truly be concerned and care and love somebody else, we've got to be able to care and love about ourselves first. You got to go back to that little boy that you used to be, who's still inside you, who's still hurting. You got to be able to forgive that little boy, or make peace with that little boy, or do whatever it is that with that person that's inside you that's still hurting. You got to forgive that first. You can't help somebody else until you can help yourself. And it's a hard lesson to learn.
Well, the hard part is that we often think that forgiveness is about the other one, right? So I forgive if I have a situation with a friend and we were lifelong friends, and then he betrayed me or he did something to me. And when I forgive him, that means I'm setting him off free, right? But that's not the case.
No, it's not.
When you forgive someone, you're forgiving for yourself. And you don't release them from responsibility, but you release yourself from the hurt. And doing it for yourself, just what you're saying, like when you were a little boy and you learned stuff, or you went through a certain phase where you feel that you are guilty or you're feeling hurt or whatever. If you start forgiving yourself from feeling all those feelings, you're forgiving yourself. And it's even a layer deeper, like forgiving someone else. It's really forgiving for yourself, to release yourself from the burden that you're carrying.
Yeah.
And when you change that shift in your mind from you're forgiving for someone else, no, you're always forgiving for yourself. That's why you forgive, not for someone else. And it's hard because we've never learned this, right? I've talked about this with a good friend of mine, and she had this crazy problems with her ex, and he is such an asshole. And I said, but could you forgive him? Never. She said, I will never forgive him. Okay. So who is wearing the pain? Is he wearing the pain that you can't forgive him, or are you wearing the pain?
Exactly. This is exactly what happened with me and my ex. It's exactly what happened. we when we split up, there was a lot of anger there. I was dirt. She just wanted to hang on to anger and hatred and blame me for everything. Never accepted the fact that she's part of the reason we broke up. She gave up long before I did, but we both gave up. So that's a whole business. Specifics are not necessary. But we recently had a conversation and we got into it. And I said to her, you really need to learn how to forgive. And I just blurted out, you really need to learn. I will never forgive you. I said, no. You don't have to forgive me. I don't need your forgiveness. You need to forgive yourself. Forgive myself for what? Hanging on to all of this hatred. You're the one who said you wanted to move on with your life. But as long as you hang on to this hatred and you can't let it go, you're not moving anywhere. Until you realize that in your own mind, you're going to stay the same wonderful person that you are right now. Look how happy you are. You're miserable. You have to forgive yourself. You don't have to forgive me. I don't need it. But she didn't get it. It didn't click. It'll click in time. It'll come. It'll happen. I'm not worried about that.
Yeah.
But the conversation needed to be had.
Exactly. And I think what really matters here is that she has to forgive you. From her perspective, she has to forgive you. But it's not about you. It's about her. It's
right.
Her feeling about the forgiveness, right?
Right.
So once she can think, I forgive for anything that John did for me, and that releases me of the burden of feeling what I'm feeling, then you can move on. And that's how you forgive yourself, right? So once you start forgiving in the name of the other, the other one doesn't even have to know, right? You don't even have to tell the other one. I never told my ex I forgave her.
Right.
We never talked anymore, right? But I forgave her for all the shit that she did to me.
Right.
And not because I release her of her responsibilities or whatever. No, because I wanted to move on.
Right. And that poses a really good question for the people who are listening right now. Guys, what is it that you're hanging on to right now? What do you need to forgive yourself from?
Yeah.
Release How can you yourself move on? From hanging on to this, whatever this is that you're hanging on to you. Is it helping you get where you want to be? Exactly. And this circles around to where we started off this morning from when I couldn't go to this event that I wanted to go to. Getting pissed off about it, hanging on to the hurt of not being able to go is not helping me get from where I am to where I want to be. Why are we doing this? And be careful when you ask a why question because it always assumes guilt. Okay. Yeah. What purpose does it serve? What purpose is hanging on to this guilt or anger or whatever it is serving for you? How is it helping you get where you want to go? Yeah. If it's not, you got to let it go. And it takes practice.
It takes practice. Absolutely. And you can start with the small things, right? You can start with small little things when your kid says something or does something and you feel like, what the fuck is wrong with this kid, right? We all have this feeling sometimes.
Yeah.
Start with things like that, right? Or when your spouse didn't do the dishes this evening, or when she didn't make up the bed, or whatever. Start with, if I let go of the anger or the feeling of, whatever you're feeling, how does that help you? So forgive her or him for doing what you're doing, for what he or she has done. Mm-hmm. And that starts with yourself, indeed, John. So that's beautiful said. Yeah. There's a very interesting book which is called Self-Deception and Leadership, Getting Out of the Box, and it's a book from the Arbinger Institute. I'll put a link down somewhere in the comments, and you should definitely read this book. It's a storytelling book, so there's a story that's been told. And it goes about leadership and how people are inside of a box thinking about how the world and everything around it is the solution for what the problem is. Well, it starts with yourself being the solution for the problem. And they have this great analogy there where they say, okay, so let's focus. Let's see, there's a toddler and he's crawling throughout the room, right? And when babies start to crawl, they first crawl and they crawl backwards, right? That's just how the mechanics work. Often that happens. So figure the situation that this toddler, this little kid, tries to crawl and gets stuck with his feet or his legs in some chairs at the table. And clearly, you and I know, crawl forward and you got your solution. But he doesn't know he can crawl forward. The only thing he knows is crawl the way he crawls. And what does he do? He tries to crawl harder, 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 and the problem even gets worse. Now, if that baby could talk, he would probably say, that damn chair, right? That's the problem. If the chair wasn't there, the problem wouldn't be there. And that's how most of people think. But once you start thinking in a different way, stepping out of the box, in that matter, right? Finding a different solution for what you're doing, then you can be the part of the solution and not the part of that's outward of you. So yeah, I don't know how I came up with this, but this is
absolutely right. You're absolutely right. You know, Tony. One of the things that I learned from Tony is he said something about the biggest problem that we have with problems is the belief that we shouldn't have any.
Yeah, that's good.
Problems are there to help you figure out a solution, to help you grow. The obstacles are there. They're there for a reason. They're not there to make your life miserable. They're there to make your life better. Can you find a way out?
Yeah.
Can you find a way around it? What can you do? And now all of a sudden you found a new way to do something, and guess what? You've grown.
Yeah. It's an interesting concept that I've learned this from one of my Japanese masters. I did a workshop once called the Samurai Game. Interesting concept, by the way. But they had these two like main rules, and one of these rules I actually got tattooed on my arm. Right? In case, well, it's up there. But the other one that's saying it's called Kiki, and Kiki are two symbols in Japanese, also in Chinese, by the way, but in this case Chinese, Kiki, which means the Japanese term for crisis. And these two symbols by themselves mean danger and opportunity.
Mm.
And if you combine these two, that's the word crisis, right? And I love that analogy. I love that way of thinking, that if you combine the terms crisis, if you combine the terms danger and opportunity, you form the word crisis. That's what a crisis is. That's what a problem is. That's what, if you're standing in front of something that is really like putting your situation in danger, there's an opportunity and there's a danger. So you should avoid the danger or make a solution for the danger and search for the opportunity there. And that's what this whole pandemic is all about, right? What are the opportunities that's being created right now by being a new form of a leader that you can become, by learning new skills that you have, by having more time with your family at home when you're working from home, right? Creating more freedom in your life. There's so many things that you can create from this opportunity instead of being focused on all the danger part. Like you get sick, you can die, you get the virus, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. We so often are only triggered by that, but we should also focus on that opportunity part. But you only can do that once you get rid of the fear, right? You can be neutral, like you just showed. Yeah. Cool, man. Well, that was a lot we covered in these like 40 minutes.
Yeah, we did.
Insane. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I wanted to say I'm sorry that this happened to you, but I'm actually not going to say that because I want to congratulate you with this happening, because it actually made you move into a new space and a realization that helps you realize something in your growth yourself, which is awesome. Yeah. So very cool. And indeed, there will be another opportunity that will be there, I'm certain. And,
no doubt about it.
So cool. Well, thanks again, John, for being here. You guys also, thank you so much for being in the group. The group is still growing, so that's very cool to see. Now today we didn't record this, we didn't do this live because we had our I had to reschedule for my other plans tonight, but probably next week, well, since you're not at the UPW, that's also the opportunity. We can do it live again. Yep. So
we'll go live next week. We'll be here.
We'll be live here at the same time, same place. So thanks again.
When you see this recording, feedback. guys, let us know what you think. What are you hearing from us? What are you
Yeah.
not hearing from us? What is it that you guys want to hear from us? Let us know.
Exactly. Yeah,
Let us know.
exactly.
We need you guys on board here. So give us the feedback.
Yeah,
All right. We're not going to bark
absolutely.
at you.
What? No, especially not. No, we really appreciate the feedback that we're already getting, and indeed tell us what kind of subjects you want us to talk about more, or which areas of life we want to focus on more or less, or whatever. Yeah, so please do. Absolutely.
All right.
All right. Well, John, thanks again. It was a
Thanks
pleasure.
again, buddy. And
And
we'll be in touch during the week, and we'll be live next Sunday.
absolutely, guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.
All right. Bye-bye.